Welcome to this lesson on cumulative frequency graphs, how to make one as well as how to interpret one from a raw set of data. So the data in the box over on the left is data that I asked a class of students how many devices were in their household, electronic devices, phones, tablets, and computers. And so the data I got is on the left. And I've taken that and I've made a frequency table here. So the number of devices along with the frequency of that number. And what I'm going to do to that is I'm going to add another column to that called cumulative frequency. And the cumulative frequency column then means that I am going to be adding them up as I go along so that they are accumulating. So I'm going to start with 1, and then instead of just saying 3, now it's the 1 that I already had plus the 3 more to get 4, and then the 4 that I had plus 3 more to get 7, etc. And you can see that as I get to the end of my cumulative frequency graph, my column, I ended with 24, which would be the total number of responses that I had in the original data set, which is a good sign that confirms that I did my adding correctly. So now I'm going to take this and I'm going to put this on a graph. The number of devices is going to go on the x-axis. We've graphed frequency before on the y-axis, and in this case, because I have a discrete math problem, this would be a bar graph if I were to graph the frequencies. But because I am making a cumulative frequency graph, I'm not actually looking at the frequencies. I'm going to be putting the cumulative frequencies on the y-axis. So I have a setup, devices already across. I know I need to get up to 24, so I need to probably count each tick mark as 2 units on the y-axis. So I'll mark some of them. I know this would be 24 then. All right, so I'm going to just start going ahead and putting my points. The cumulative frequency graph is always going to start at 0 because we haven't accumulated anything to start with. However, the number of devices is 4, has a frequency of 1. So that would be my first frequency as well as my first cumulative frequency. The next one would be that at 7 devices, the cumulative frequency was 4. I forgot I scaled this. Sorry about that. So 1, and then at 7 devices, the cumulative frequency was 4. At 8 devices, the cumulative frequency is 7. At 9 devices, the cumulative frequency is 9. And then we're going to go ahead and finish filling these out. So I'm going to go all the way across and fill each of these. So at 12 devices, my cumulative frequency is 13. At 13 devices, my cumulative frequency is 15. At 14, it goes all the way up to 20. And at 15 devices, then I achieve my cumulative frequency of 24. So that would be the cumulative frequency points that I've got from my table. And now the goal is that we would connect them in a kind of smooth line. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and label this that this is the cumulative frequency, and then the number of devices. What's probably more useful than just the cumulative frequency graph is to actually go ahead and put percentile on this graph as well. Percentile means that value would be greater than or equal to what percent of the data. So the highest value is the 100th percentile, that 24 is greater than or equal to 100% of the data by the time I get to the cumulative frequency of 24. Instead of muddying up my y-axis and having different scales all over there on the left side of the graph, I'm actually going to just make another vertical axis over here, and I'm going to label that the percentile, so that I can look to the left and see the cumulative frequency, or I could look to the right and see the percentile. So I know that the 24 mark here, that would be the 100th percentile, which means then I can just start chunking that into fractions to find other percentiles. I'm going to mark every 25th percentile. So if 24 people, or responses in this case, is the 100th percentile, then that means 12 is the 50th percentile, which means 6 is the 25th percentile, and 18 would be the 75th percentile. So then we can answer questions based on this information. Now I can look at this graph and answer questions. For instance, the question might say that in another household, that family ended up having 6 devices, and asking you what percentile that might be in. What percentile? So in order to figure out what percentile that would be in, I'm going to find the 6 devices along the x-axis, which would be here, and I'm going to go up to see where I hit my graph on that, and then I'm going to drag that across to see what percentile that would be, and then I can estimate that. So that estimate to me looks like about the 14th or the 15th percentile. So I found the value from the x-axis, and then I'm using that to estimate a value that's on the y-axis. We also can answer questions based on the percentile. So if I wanted to say, what would count as the 90th percentile? That in order to be in the 90th percentile, how many devices would I need to have? And so that question is just done the backwards way of the first example. I would find approximately the 90th percentile on the axis that gives me the percentiles, and then I would trace that over to my curve, and then I would trace that down to estimate the number of devices. In this case, it would be somewhere in between 14 and 15. So we're just going to go ahead and estimate that would be 14 devices to be in the 90th percentile. I hope this was helpful and that you enjoy your work with cumulative frequencies.